What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we are working on part 2 of bodywork on our stand-up jet ski. Stick around, let me show you how it got here. Alright guys, so we gotta do a little preliminary sanding. We got some stuff protruding here, as you can see, rounding all the edges you can see right there. Also on that side, and then we'll be ready to put some glass on. Alright, and there is our preliminary sanding. Next step is putting on glass. Now I'm going to do, I think, first a hair fiber layer, then I'm going to probably do a mesh layer, then another hair fiber layer, then maybe another mesh layer. It's pretty stiff right now. I don't think that thing's going to move it because it's really only stuck around the edges into the foam underneath it. I want to make sure that there's enough basic reinforcement so when I step on this thing or you hit a wave, that it's not going to put your foot through it. So, plus we got to go over the edges on this thing. Some of this will be exposed, some won't. But we also have to fill this in too. So there's a couple different types of glass we'll be using. Let me go ahead and throw some of that on. I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so there's 2 layers of glass so far. The first layer was a hair stranded layer. The second layer was a cloth layer. And then again, I'll have another layer, would be the hair strand, and then a cloth again. From my experience, the cloth layers don't like to stick to each other. I don't really know why, and that's the reason I actually use the hair layers to help adhere to whatever it's being put on. It just seems like it works better overall. So we'll let this dry, we'll put the second coat on, then we'll get ready for some final glazing. Alright, so something I just noticed, you probably wouldn't have seen this because you can't really tell on camera, but there's actually an air bubble right here, which we cannot have. Usually you can see the air bubble because when you can press down on it, you know it's an air bubble, but it's usually lighter colored. You can tell that it's not basically adhered to the piece underneath it. Now that's not good because if you have one air bubble, that air bubble could stretch and loosen all the way across, so we can't have that. You don't necessarily need to cut it out. You can if you want. Sometimes you can just take basically a U-shaped cut like this and lift it up and get some resin underneath it and you'll be fine. You just have to make sure that there's enough to where that air bubble goes away because you don't want to lay another layer over top of that and that still be there. So usually the best bet is just to cut it out and fill it in, which is probably what I'm going to do, but I'm going to go ahead and put the second layer on right now. Alright, so our second layer is done now. I had a little bit of sanding done, but now we're going to go ahead and glass a little bit. We actually have to use Bondo hair fiber to get inside here and maybe smooth this out a little bit. I'm not too concerned about how smooth that is. You won't be able to tell underneath the turf for one, and for two, I don't think this thing's ever going to be uncovered from turf unless someday somebody tries to make some kind of vintage something different, and by that point they can deal with it. So put a little glass on top of that, and then we got to go ahead and put some hair fibers down here on our brackets, which has been 24 hours, so that's all dry and ready to go. We'll clean that up, get some glass in there just for added safety. I still don't think it's going anywhere with our panel bond because that thing, I had it clamped and it does not move. So I'm pretty sure it's fine, but I'm going to put a little glass over just to be safe. And after that, we're going to start disassembling whatever's left in this hole. We're going to go ahead and strip everything down and get ready to sand the entire thing and get it painted. Okay, so that last layer went on good. We sanded it down. Overall, the base and shape is what it needs to be, but there are some areas, like you can see here and down in there, just some random areas here that we have to go through and touch up with our glazing putty to get it smooth. I'm not, again, going to make this all perfect because that's getting covered with turf, so that's just a waste of time and product. But while that's drying, we're going to start taking apart a lot of the stuff that's on the ski, like the bed plate, the engine mounts, the handlebar pole, everything that's going to have to come off before we get this thing prepped and ready for paint. So let me go ahead and hit it with this, and we'll start taking things apart. Our last touch-ups are on now. I went ahead and pulled the bed plate and the engine mounts. I've got a few other things to get out of there, cables, wires, whatever else we can get out of there. One problem I know I'm going to run into right now is I got to get the ski pole off, or the handlebar pole, and typically that's going to be those 3 bolts right there. Problem is that it looks like somebody glassed it in, so that's kind of a problem because whoever did this body work might have screwed us. So I have to do some research to figure out how this thing comes apart. I would imagine initially it came apart by this splitting, then you pulling out the cables, wires, and whatever else through the bottom, I imagined. Unfortunately, at this point, well, that's not going to happen, I don't think, unless I do some cutting on this, which I don't really want to do, but if I have to, I will. Anyhow, let me do some research. I'll be right back. Alright, so it looks like I could be wrong as far as this being bonded together. Not necessarily wrong about it being bonded together, but I'm probably wrong about the last owner or somebody else doing it. I was looking online, and the parts fitch only show this as one piece, and also I was looking at some videos of other guys like changing parts or whatever, and it looks like theirs from the factory was bonded as well, so that's probably just the way it is. So what I can tell is I need to disconnect probably this right here, pop that off, and then there's a spring right here that actually holds everything up. And so what I need to do is I need to take this nut off right here, and this bolt will slide all the way through, and I'll pull this whole thing off, and hopefully the wires will come with it, but it'll leave the steering cable. That way, maybe, I don't really want to take that out of the hull, but I do need it out of my way to paint. So I don't know, let me take those parts off and let's see where it happens. All right, so that was relatively easy. All I did was sit the pole down, zip this nut off, stand the pole up, pull that bolt out, pull the spring out, and here we are. The only downside is it's kind of stuck at this point, which that's okay though, because we have to take this piece off anyway. So we've got 4 bolts we're going to take out that look to be about 12 millimeter. We'll get those out. I don't know if I have to reach in the bottom side to get to the actual nut itself. I'm sure there's probably one, but I'll find out here in a second. All right, so it's out, relatively easy, took about 7 minutes. All I did was I unbolted those 4 bolts I told you about, the 12 millimeter. There's a loader bracket, which is this right here, dropped out. I was able to lift it up, pull the steering cable out, then lift the whole pole off, and then all I had to do was pull out the 3 bolts on each side of this right here. That thing slid out, the wires pulled out, and it's as you see it right now. So very, very simple to do. It was complicated until I figured out that it all just needed to be taken out one piece at a time. So we've got that out. The next piece we need to get out is our hood strap, so that has to come off, and then a few other random pieces, and we're going to start sanding this thing. All right, so everything's off. The last thing we had to pull off was the exhaust. That was pretty straightforward. It's just 3 rivets we had to drill out with a 3/16 inch bit, and then obviously 1 clamp to pull off the inner tube. It's all off, and now we're ready to go outside and do some sanding. Now I think I'm actually going to bring this lily out into the grass and sand it, because there's so much dust already from this fiberglass that I don't know how I'm going to get a clean paint job without trash all in my paint. So this is definitely going to get sanded outside. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be probably hot and wet, who knows, but I'm going to get it done. You guys don't need to see any of that because, well, that's kind of boring, but I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. All right, guys, so quick update. I am sanding. I told you I wouldn't show you all this, and I'm not going to, but as I said, this thing wasn't originally red. I think I did misspeak and say that they didn't make them red. They did make them red, but it's more like an orangish red, where this is kind of like a deep Ferrari red. Anyhow, whoever ended up painting it or gel coating it, whatever they did, didn't fix any of the bottom. And you can kind of see all the divots here, and I've sanded it down quite a bit. I don't want to sand it down too much because I don't want to, you know, take the natural sturdiness of the fiberglass itself out, or make it anywhere where I have to worry about it crushing in when I hit a wave or something like that. So I'll probably put a little bit of filler on there. Again, I don't expect it to be perfect, and well, neither should you, but I do want it to be a lot better than what you see right here. So we'll probably do a nice light skim coat of the filler there after I'm done sanding everything, let it dry, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let me keep sanding here. This is a bit of a process. All right, so spot filling is done. We're gonna let that dry. We're gonna start sanding the top half. We'll come back and smooth all that out. Okay, so after what seemed like forever sanding and filling, it's tough to tell, but it's a lot better than it was. Hood sanded too, had some repairs to make on it, and then the pole itself was a pain in the butt, but we got that all sanded down too. So now we're gonna hit it with Mrs. Clean, and we're gonna clean her up. And you can actually see how dirty this was, being the other side of the shop, just from all that fiberglass. So that's gonna be interesting, trying to get all that out of here so I can spray something halfway decent. But I'm gonna go ahead and spray this right now, get it cleaned up, and then we'll get ready for prep. Alright, so I have a newfound respect for sanding with a rough grit sanding sponge and water, like wet sanding. Like, it's unbelievable how well it smoothed that out. I didn't expect to, and I was like, I'll go over it. And man, it works like super easy and super well. So FYI, if you guys need to get a little Bondo shaped and smooth, that is definitely the way. Anyhow, we're getting this thing picked up, put in the shop, and we're gonna let it dry out. So some of you noticed that I was pressure washing the clear coat off the handlebar pole, and you'll notice it's basically everywhere, large chunks of it. And this is indicative of not using enough hardener or not letting it set up in time and just spraying it on. If you see something like this, you're working on a project that starts peeling off like that, or it's kind of soft when you're like peeling off stickers and stuff, you need to get it all off, because if you don't, your paint's probably not going to stick well. So just FYI, make sure you get all this junk off. Okay, so moving forward, we're going to be testing out a brand new product for as far as paint. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to just spray the inside of the hull and then inside of the hood, as you can see here, with the primer, just to kind of see how it works. Now, this isn't a sponsored video for these people, but this is Summit Racing, their own urethane paint, primer, and clear. So I've not used this before. I've not heard anything about it. So I don't know how well it sprays, but I know it is a urethane. It's a 2K, so it should be a decent paint. And the price is amazing on it. So compared to the Sherwin-Williams we normally use, this is about a quarter, maybe a third of the cost. So we'll find out how well it works, but today I want to simply spray again inside the hull and inside the hood, just kind of give it an idea how it works. I hope it's not one of those situations where you start to paint, you're like, oh, I'll paint this and that too, and maybe a little bit of this, because I'm not really set up for it. As you can see, I'm just putting a little bit of drop cloth here, because it's only a gray primer. So I'm not, wrapping everything off. I will say that there's a lot of stuff laying all over the garage, from dandelion dander to fiberglass to, I don't know how I'm going to get this thing clean to ever paint again, but we're going to do it. Nonetheless, I'm going to get prepped right now. We're going to get ready to spray the inside of this thing. Okay, to start, we're going to go ahead and we're going to mix up our urethane primer with our activator. It's 4-to-1. Pretty straightforward. We're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes and then we'll start spraying. So let's get into it. Okay, so I had to go ahead and reduce it a little bit because this stuff is crazy thick. I don't think I've ever seen any kind of paint this thick. It's just whatever. But it did help that it's a 4-to-1 because it helped thin it out. I don't know if I can actually spray this with my gun. See, my gun's got a 1.4 tip. Typically with primers that are heavy like this, you need like a 2 something, which I don't have. So worst case scenario, I'll have to thin it more and more until it's actually sprayable. But I'll do a test spot on a piece of cardboard to see how it does. So I'm going to get into it, I'm going to try it, we'll see how it turns out. Alright guys, seriously, this sprays so well, I'm kind of dumbfounded. Now I did have to reduce it quite a bit, like 30%, but it sprayed fantastic. I mean, look how much better it looks than that crappy white that comes stock. I mean, all one color, granted it's still wet, but like, it covered so well, I don't have words for it. It's unbelievable how good it sprayed. And the kicker to this is that look how much paint we have left. All that heavy, I still have 60% of my cup left. It was maybe a quarter-inch below top. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with that. This is where it kind of comes to the point where like you start painting things, you think, oh, I shouldn't probably paint this, but I'm probably going to because it is primer. I can sand it if I have to. So I'm thinking maybe I'll prep the deck, or maybe I'll prep the handlebar pole. That'd be a good one to do. Maybe not, I don't know if I have somewhere to put it, but I'm going to go ahead and spray it. I'm going to keep spraying whatever primer I have left in this cup because I don't want to waste it. And, well, we'll see where we end up. So, yeah, I know, I'm ridiculous. I get it. But in all fairness, I did not know that amount of primer would go that far. This is actually 2 coats, so that gives you an idea how much I sprayed. So, again, in all fairness, like a typical can of spray paint's like 12 ounces, and that's about the same thing that cup holds. Do you think you can get all that inside and out of a spray paint can, just one of them? I doubt it. So I thought the same thing, especially as thick as it was. I know I thinned it out, but like, I thought, well, I'll get the inside of that and the top of this, and I might have a hair left over. No, I mean, that stuff just... And it's good primer, and I'll tell you right now, it's like 150 or 200% humidity. I mean, I'm literally just, like, my gloves are dripping out, my face is dripping. Obviously, you saw it was raining out earlier, so it is just super humid, but the paint is still laying on really well. And again, this is just the first primer coat. I probably won't do another inside, but we'll have areas we'll have to touch up, like, you'll see that right there, which actually was cracked fiberglass I noticed yesterday. It's probably hard to see, but there's a little spot on the side of this. It looks like maybe there's a little bit of the residue from the original stickers still on there. On a few of the little spots, you'll see the deck looks like crap. Obviously, we knew that, though, and it's being covered up, so I don't even care about any of that. I expected that. So there's other little areas that are pitted. You see right here. I don't even know what it's from. That must have been from the original owner when they put the HydroTurf on. I didn't really notice. I know there was a couple of marks, but that's one nice thing about having one solid paint color, because it really shows everything. You can go back and kind of touch up what you need to touch up. So I think everything else, though, really it turned out pretty good. It's a fairly smooth paint. And I definitely, for the price, like, I think I bought a gallon of clear, a gallon of base, which actually is a clear base, and a gallon of the primer, plus the quart of hardener or whatever it is. And I think it came out a total of like $180. I mean, you cannot go anywhere and get a urethane paint that's going to do that. Now, again, I'm kind of bragging, and it isn't a sponsored episode by them at all whatsoever, but again, I'm bragging. Again, this is just primer, though. This isn't the base or the clear yet, so we'll see how that sprays. But if it's any indication as to how this sprayed, I'm willing to bet it's going to be decent paint. So we're going to let this thing dry. I will be back in a minute. All right, guys, so our primer is now dry. Keep in mind, we have a little bit of touch up here and there. That's not a problem, but we're going to go ahead and move forward, and we are going to put the base coat inside the hull and in the top of the hood. We're just not going to use clearly as much as we did on the primer. Now's the time I'm going to reveal the color with you. So the color is actually going to be a black metallic pearl. Just be happy I'm not doing some crazy pearl, all right? I know you guys are probably sick of those crazy pearls. I just wanted a metallic black. I wanted to do the large flake black, kind of old school, but my gun won't shoot that. Again, you need a heavier tipped gun to be able to shoot that, and I don't have one of those, so I'm just settling for a basic black metallic pearl. So what we're going to be using here is the Summit single stage acrylic urethane paint. Basically, it's a basic urethane that we're going to add the hardener, just like we did with the base primer on it. But it's got clear built into it, which is kind of cool. Though we'll probably put another clear on top of that. Keep in mind, I bought clear to go with that. Inside it will be a black diamond pearl. You can kind of see that stuff sparkling, so it should look pretty cool. I'm not going to do this for, obviously, inside the hood and inside the hull because, well, you're not going to see that. It's kind of pointless. So we're going to adjust the base right here inside there. That we don't need to actually clear inside there either, since it has it built in and it's inside the hull. And it's going to be 1,000 times better looking than OEM. So let me go forward and get all that taken care of for you, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so there is our base, and once again, we poured more than I expected. But this time, I can't really spray it unless I add, I guess, some of the pearl to it, which I really don't want to. Nonetheless, I'm pouring out of this gallon bucket here. I even use one of those things there that are supposed to help from spilling. Those suck, so don't use those. So I ended up just pouring it out of the bucket, and I was trying not to pour it all over the place because I really didn't prep or put anything on the floor like I should have. So this is definitely thinner than the primer was, so I have to adjust the gun, but let's go ahead and spray what we got to spray. And okay, so it has been sprayed, and as you can see, it turned out quite well. There is some trash you can kind of see just from the reflection. I knew that was going to happen, so it's irrelevant, especially inside that tub there where you can't get all the dust out, but you can see the trash. That's how much stuff's laying around in the garage right now, so it's going to be a serious job getting this thing clean before this actual thing is sprayed. But that's to come. Anyhow, what do I think of the paint? The paint sprayed really well. Honestly, it felt a lot like single-stage enamel paint when I was spraying it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's just, when you have a clear built into your base, that's just kind of the way it sprays. So it dries ultra fast. And one of the crazy parts is if we come back here to the paint itself, here's where I poured the paint out the side about 20 minutes ago. It's completely dry. No hardener. Whatever. I don't know. So that also reminds me of enamel paint as well. But nonetheless, it overall looks good. It sprayed well. If I had to do it over again, I probably would have added a little bit of reducer. Not much, but a little bit. It would probably thinned it out enough to where that 1.4 tip sprayed a little bit better. It is a little bit thick for a 1.4 tip, so I would say either get a slightly larger tip or thin it out a little bit. Easiest way is probably just thin it out a little bit, and it'll look just fine anyways, especially if you're going over it with the top coat of clear. So you can see how shiny it already is. So they weren't lying when they said it was a base clear. It's definitely got some clear in it. So like I said, because it's a water sport, I'll probably want the extra shine, so I'll put the clear over top of it. I don't know yet if I'm going to mix the pearl into the base or the clear. I'm thinking probably the clear because it'll use a lot less, which would be ideal. But I don't know for sure yet. We'll get there. But for now, we still have some touch-up to do. So now this is drying. We're going to start, we're a little time, but we're going to start flipping these things over and touching up those little spots that we pointed out already that needed to be touched up with a little bit of Bondo, a little body filler. and then we'll start preparing to get this place cleaned out so we can actually do some painting. So let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, so it's day 2. We are going to do another shoot, and we are going to shoot the bottom of the ski and potentially the top of the engine hood. I don't know for sure yet. It just depends, I guess, on how this is laying. I'm keeping it very basic. I put a drop cloth on the ground. I'm not blocking everything off just because I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle with all the dust that's been in here. So I'll probably be having to wet sand and buff it out anyway. So to spend an extra hour taping everything off, I don't feel like doing it. So we're just going to run with it. We're going to try it out. This paint seems kind of soft. I'm not really excited about its basically the way it feels after being 24 hours of sitting. It should be harder, and it's not. It's still kind of strange that it dried faster without the activator. I don't know if there's something in the activator that slows it down. But nonetheless, we're going to spray it. We're going to see how it goes. So this is going to get its first coat of primer, and then we're going to hit it with the base and then the clear with the pearl. So if all goes well, we'll have a nice looking ski. If not, well, we'll be doing it again. So let's go ahead and move forward and get it done. Okay, so it seems to have taken off fairly well. Not perfect, but definitely the key to this paint is definitely reducing it by like 10 to 15%. Definitely sprays it way smoother. I went ahead and sprayed the ski pole too, or the handlebar pole, whatever it's called. At least one side of it. So it came out pretty well. Overall, not many runs, not a whole lot of trash. The bottom is pretty ugly anyhow, so I don't know if it's trash or not, but if I look at the other panels, I don't see a whole lot. Did have a couple runs in this back corner. And then when I sprayed the hood had some problems. It laid down good with a little bit orange peel. I must have hit the gun or something, and it started pumping more juice because I got runs there. I got a little bit of a run up here. There's some kind of funky stuff going on right there. And you can see just a little bit of orange peel. So I'm gonna put a second coat on this one here in another 10 minutes with the last of the cup that we used. And hopefully it'll turn out all right. Like I said, I don't know what I'll do with those runs there, but maybe I can buff them out. We'll see. In fact, there's even another one right there if you can see it. So it's really strange with the hood. It was completely different from all the others. Those sprayed perfectly smooth, and this one was, I don't know. I don't know what I did. If I changed the gun, like I said, or accidentally hit the knob on it or what. So anyhow, I got another coat to go. Then we're going to clear these and let them dry overnight. Okay, so here it is. Let me throw a little light on it. See all that metallic in it? It looks really nice. So far, it's turned out really, really well. Right now, we're going to let this thing dry. The clear coat sprayed like fantastic, like most expensive clear coat spray, and it's drying really fast too. So I can definitely say this is a lot better than the base clear. But again, I'm going to let this thing dry. We're going to have to wait like, I don't know, 24 hours again. So tomorrow we'll flip this thing over. We'll spray the top half, let it dry, and then it should be good to go for buffing and everything else. So let's let this thing dry. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so while we're waiting for the paint to cure, we went ahead and sprayed our pole mount base thing, whatever you want to call it, with some appliance epoxy white. If you don't know, if you have scratched up holes in the bottom of your jet skis and things of that nature, this is the paint that you want to use. It's very, very high gloss and very strong paint. So for spray paint, you really can't beat it. You can kind of see the gloss that it comes with. Very nice. Anyhow, that's that. Let's move forward. All right, so a little bit of update and where we're at right now. As you can see, I'm sanding the hood. It just looked bad. You can see all those divots everywhere. Something with that base coat, it did not like when it was sprayed for whatever reason. All the other parts were perfectly fine, but that one, not so much. And the only thing I could put together is because I didn't sand that primer prior to putting it down, which the directions say specifically sand the primer, do not sand the primer, and of course I didn't. All the other parts I just sprayed fresh primer, so it was a little bit different scenario. I think that's why this one had a bad reaction, but you can see it's all over the place. So what I want to do now, I really don't want to mess with putting more base coat on this. I don't know why, because I'm going to be spraying the rest of this with base, but I just kind of don't want to. I'm going to try to dial it a little bit more for this here, but the biggest thing is I want to get rid of the orange peel. Like you can see right here, it's got orange peel, and that's not from the clear coat. The clear coat laid smooth. That's all from the base coat. So I'll be honest with you, I really don't like this base coat, but I've already bought it. We've used it. We're going to continue using it. Will the paint job be perfect? No, it's not going to be perfect, but it'll be just fine. Anyhow, what I'm doing is I've just wet sanded this down because it's in the base coat, not the clear. I've got it really, really close, which means it's still going to be there a hair, unless I get enough clear over top of it to where I can wet sand that down and get it level. The smart person would probably just base it again, but I really just don't want to do that. That's potential. We'll see after I paint this and where this works and how that lays, and maybe I will. I don't know. But for right now, we got to finish getting everything sanded, even all this right here, so it can get sprayed. We'll tape everything off on the bottom because we know the bottom is perfectly fine. We just got to hit this top. So let's go ahead and do that and start finishing this thing up. Okay, so we are getting ready to do our final spray. It's just going to be base coat, then top coat. We'll see how it goes. We got the hood, we got the pole, and we got the main body. So this is about to get sprayed right now. I'm going to do my best to make sure that this paint, well, it does what it's supposed to. I sanded everything, so I went by every single rule and guideline that the manufacturer said. So I'll do my best to make this base work. Again, I don't really like it, but we'll see how it turns out. Give me a minute, I'll be right back and I'll show you that. Okay, so let's look at this thing layer by layer. Now, it's not completely dry, the second coat isn't, but I'm looking at it. There's still a little bit of orange peel. It actually looks worse on the camera than it actually is, oddly enough. But it is smoother than the last time I did it. Actually, it looks pretty good. Like I said, I don't know why it looks so bad on camera, but it actually is fairly smooth. Anyhow, the only thing that I did, I turned the pressure down to almost nothing coming out of the gun, or not the pressure, I apologize, the flow. It's about all I could do and put thin layers on. So I put thin, really it was like 3.5, 4 layers or coats. But nonetheless, it's on there. I think that's going to be the majority of our any orange peel that we get. I think the clear will lay down pretty good like it did last time, and hopefully it'll help smooth it out a little bit. But overall, like I said, it was decent. What looks like trash actually isn't trash. That's just the trash fiberglass, all the little tiny holes in it, because I never filled in with body filler, but I don't care about it. That's all getting covered. We talked about that. But anyhow, like I said, overall, it's pretty good. I still don't really care for this base. It works, but I wouldn't use it again. At least not on a car or any kind of main project. So I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to wait, put that clear on, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, and our clear coat sprayed exactly like I thought it, which was great. Again, it's going to look like there's a lot of orange peel here from the side. That's because the base coat, but it really, again, isn't that bad. But the clear coat, just kind of give you an idea here, lay down really, really well. There's a little bit of orange peel, but again, that's a lot to do from the actual base coat itself. So it turned out really nice, I thought. And then we got the hood here, which it looks like so far looks okay. And then I went ahead and resprayed the top of the pole too, because there was a little bit of crap in it. So I figured it'd give me a little bit of wiggle room to wet sand it down and get the trash out. So there it is. We're gonna let this thing dry, and we're gonna start putting the ski back together. Okay, moving forward, let's talk about conclusions and final thoughts of the products that we used today and how everything turned out. So I want to say that my expectations have been met. I didn't expect this ski to be like some kind of crazy build that was going to be like some flawless design and sprayed. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's an old jet ski. It's only worth so much. It's a cool project, but it is going to get scratched up when it's out in the water. It was the nature of these type of skis. So let's talk about why I came to that conclusion I did, and why I think that it turned out, for the most part, pretty well. Now, yes, this looks like poo-poo, and I get that. That's because those are all, again, pits from the fiberglass. It's not trash. It's actually pits. That's because I didn't do any kind of body filler on here. I did a little bit up there. You can kind of see where that smoothed out. Not back here. And the reason why, again, this is all covered in hydroturf, so I will not be seeing any of this or feeling any of this. So I don't care to make this thing perfectly smooth. Not only that, when the glue goes over top of this, it'll adhere to more porous areas, so it's actually better that it's like that. But the rest of the ski that is not covered, which is essentially this whole front end right here and down across the bottom, turned out what I thought was pretty well. Now again, if you look at it, it looks like there's a little bit of orange peel. That's mostly because of the base coat. However, it's really not as bad as, again, it shows on camera. Let's talk about products. Again, I told you that the primer coat, I really like the way it sprayed, and that's pretty typical of most primers. Usually they spray pretty well. If they don't, well, then I don't know what you're using, because I've never really had a bad primer. They usually flatten out pretty well, and overall, they're usually a good paint, as was this one, and the price was fantastic. I believe it's like 49 bucks. The link will be in the description below for that. Moving forward to the base coat, which is actually a base clear, I did not like that product. Now, I can't recommend that, and for that reason, I'm not going to put it in the description. And also keep in mind, this isn't an actual review. It wasn't a sponsored product. I'd just like to show you guys the products that I use so you guys can in turn do the same thing. But as far as that base clear, it's exactly that. It's a base clear. And because of that, they don't usually spray very well, because a lot of times they are very thick. I don't know why that is, but they, just like most products, they're very thick. And it to me, felt like enamel paint when I was spraying it. While it got a better gloss and shine because it's urethane, it did feel like enamel, and it didn't lay very well. What I had to do to make it work correctly was spray it on a very low setting, so the flow was very low, and the pressure was slightly higher than it was supposed to be, and then I had to go ahead and reduce it down, which you're typically not supposed to do, but I had no choice because my 1.4 tip in my gun, which is probably what you guys have, didn't want to spray it. It was too thick. So again, I don't necessarily recommend the base coat. You guys can do what you want. You can find it on Summit's website. If you want to try it, by all means go ahead. I would prefer other methods or other products if I was you. Moving on to the top coat. The top coat clear urethane coat, I actually do like. I thought it sprayed extremely well, and it flattened like a good clear coat would. I don't know long term, obviously, because it's sitting here wet right now, but we're going to find out how it handles the abuse of the water, assuming I ever get in the water with this thing. So that said, again, I do really like the clear, and that was a fantastic price too. I don't remember it offhand, but I know it was about a quarter of the price of Sherwin-Williams Dimensions, so you really can't complain there. So yeah, the products were pretty good. As far as how this thing turned out, like I said, I kind of like it. So what we need to do now, we need to start moving forward to get everything put back together. However, I think I'm going to call it a cut for this video. Again, we try to keep our videos between 20 and 25 minutes long, so you guys don't get bored, because I know it can get boring, especially with long projects like this one. That said, if you guys like this content, definitely throw that thumbs up, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for brand new content on not only this build, but several others to come, and some of the past stuff. I'll see you on the next one.